Hey, you're listening to Profoundish. Today, Weston and I are getting a little nerdy about computers. So nerdy, in fact, that we end up putting all of the iconic Windows screensavers head-to-head, tournament bracket style. Which screensaver will be crowned champion? Keep listening to find out. This is Profoundish. Can you make it a little bit more of like a sexy growl for me? Ooh, and that's how we're starting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Profoundish. My name is Alex. What's your name?
I can't do profound. I get the P sound. The P sounds get in front of my roll. Profoundish. I'm Weston, everybody. Welcome to Profoundish.
Now that we're off the rails, Weston, how are you feeling, man? How are you feeling? What are you up to?
I'm doing all right. It's by the time we're recording this, it's getting pretty late. I've poured myself a rum and coke. I've got my candle lit. I've got the light turned down low. Got the mood going. I've got new glasses.
Ooh, you got new glasses.
I know. I've got a new pair of glasses on. Everything's so much more crisp. I'm trying.
You're trying, but it's okay to give up. It's okay. Sometimes it's okay. Were you talking to me a few months ago about like being way overdue on getting new glasses? Or am I making that up?
No, probably. I've been telling people for a while that I desperately need to go in and get new glasses. For two reasons. One, I had been suspecting my prescription had changed, and then two, the pair of glasses I had were pretty beat up, pretty scuffed up, so like that probably wasn't helping, and it was getting really bad at night where like oncoming traffic, like glare, was becoming a very serious issue. So I'm like, I need to go get my eyes checked, and I did that almost a week and a half ago, because it takes up to 2 weeks to get my glasses in. So I went in a week and a half ago, got my eyes checked. Yeah, my prescription had changed, got a couple pair of new glasses that came in just as of you and me recording this, just as of yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I know it's always kind of a big thing, like how they look. Like, do you like how you look with the new glasses?
I do. I went with my previous glasses were like more of a gray frame, and they weren't like super skinny, but they're like kind of, I don't know how to describe frames, but they were like skinny. Whereas these, I got two pairs of glasses. I got two pairs of new glasses. They're both in black though. So they stick out on they're a little bit more bold on my face, but one of them more so than the other, because one of them has like a thicker frame that really stands out and really pops. I think that's going to be kind of a fun, like going out or streaming pair of glasses. They really stand out, and I think they look nice. And then the other ones are thinner, kind of like my previous pair, just they happen to be in black. So they're a lot closer to what I usually look like. So that one you might not notice I'm wearing new glasses if you saw me, but the pair I'm actually wearing right now as I'm sitting here, you would definitely notice. You'd be like, oh, new glasses? I see. Oh,
I'd be
that was something.
How was that? Yeah, see that's how you get the ladies. Like that
was
how
a dying cat.
That's how I won Steph over. I just walked up to her and I said, "Hey, girl." That really is a dying cat, actually. Oh, that's
hey, girl.
She'd actually hate that. She loves cats. But speaking of glasses, I recently, by recently I mean probably the last year, so not that recent, but I bought a pair of blue light glasses for like computer screens and stuff.
Yeah.
And because I'm staring at these screens like all day, right? And it's definitely helpful. These aren't like super expensive ones, so they're just yellow, but like it does actually help with eye fatigue, at least from my experience. I don't know if actually I bet you your glasses, I think most like prescription glasses have that in them now, right?
Yeah, they're not like a blue light filter that you're used to. Like you can get glasses that are specifically for computer screens that are like blue light, but they do have, and I don't know if it's a chemical or if it's a finish on the glasses, they're supposed to have a little something in them to help with screens. That's what the lady I was talking to at the shop I went to said anyway. So
yeah,
I don't know if I think my previous pair might have had that in it. Maybe it didn't. I haven't noticed a difference in the 2 days I've been wearing these, but I don't usually suffer too much from eye strain. So that's not a huge concern of mine, but I do look at screens a lot, so it's nice to know.
Well, speaking of screens, like I said, you do look at screens a lot. I thought today we could talk about screens, and more specifically, computer screens, personal computers. I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22, and I use a computer. I don't know if you have ever used one before, but if you have, I'd like to know what your experience has been like. Maybe from the start, even.
More of a typewriter kind of guy. Never.
Actually, that'd be cool. I would love to have one.
A typewriter would be neat, but like they're very clacky. Like a lot of people like the mechanical. I can't think of the word. Tactile sensation of a typewriting keyboard. I think it's too much. I like mine to be quiet and like not mushy, but like easy, right? That's what I aim for my keyboards. Like, remember when mechanical keyboards were all the rage? Like everyone wanted a mechanical keyboard, or at least that's what it seemed like to me. I was not in that camp. I was like, they seem like they'd be annoying.
I know. It's funny because people are still very picky about their keyboards. At least I'm not. It's funny. I'm not even that picky about the feel. Maybe it's because I'm not typing a ton, but I'm really not. I know some people really have a preference on feel, which I have a greater respect for that than just the sound. Some people just wanted that, just the sound. That, which would be annoying.
Understand the feel to a certain level, like a really cheap keyboard versus at least just a nicer keyboard. It doesn't have to be like like a super expensive keyboard, but just a nicer keyboard. Like there can be a difference. Like you can get like a really gummy keyboard or just like a really whatever. So I get that, but the mechanical thing, never got behind that. But speaking of screens, what were we talking about?
I was asking you, about. I want to talk about computers because you and I, we both use them all the time. I mean, we all do. We live in the modern era. But I thought it'd be fun to maybe go back and then come to present day too. But maybe start kind of chronologically and talk about maybe your first like exposure to like the world of computers and just kind of in that that sort of thing, really.
It was 1996. I was a wee lad. I don't know when my first. I'm like, how old would I have been to have been old enough to manipulate a computer? You know what I mean? I was like 96. I would have been like 3. Maybe I would have touched a keyboard by then. I do remember. My parents had a story about how I would get hold of the keyboard and pluck the keys off of the keyboard, and then they would find me with it, and they'd have to put the keys back on the keyboard and not know like where the buttons went. Because it's 1996. You can't just whip out your like phone and like Google where did the keys go on a keyboard.
I wonder. I wish I could know what was going on in your little head at that point. Like you didn't eat them, you just took them.
Yeah, I just popped them off. It just felt like you could, and I guess I did.
And that's how I use keyboards.
But so I would have been really quite young the first time I used a computer. And on that old thing, in the village that I grew up in, we did not have just like internet. We had dial-up internet. So the whole like the computer just screaming at you when you try to connect to the internet, just going nuts or whatever, to dial up onto the internet. And we paid per like, I don't know, megabyte of internet used or something like that. So we weren't allowed as kids to be on the internet for very long because, it cost money or whatever. So it was only strictly for like school and research and that kind of thing. But I did like playing several different games on the computer that had nothing to do with the internet. My Roller Coaster Tycoon. We had a SimCity 3000. All the humongous games, Backyard Baseball, Putt Putt, Spy Fox. So lots of games there. And that would have been I don't remember what it was. Some Windows 95 maybe, computer with the like sort of rounded, fat-backed monitor.
Oh, yeah. Man, the big old fat like off-white computers. I mean, that's just what it was. I remember. So I was probably, because we touched on the games before, and that's actually kind of what made me think about talking about this today, was because we talked about some of our earliest gaming memories were on the computer, and because for me it was the same stuff, pretty much to you, with your SimCities and your Roller Coaster Tycoons and stuff. And in fact, one of my earliest memories in my life is I know I was 4, so I'm about a year younger than you. So this would have been 1998, I guess, because this is before any of my siblings were born. And I remember playing a version of Echo the Dolphin on my dad's computer.
I've heard of that game. Never played that one.
It was a Sega game and I guess computer game. And for my dad, so it came as a demo on my dad's computer at the time. And at the time, I know, at least as my dad told the story later, he said whatever he had, I don't know what he had because I was so young, but he said he pretty much got the nicest computer he could get at the time, which was probably at that point like a 500 megabyte hard drive or whatever, you know what I mean, like all that stuff.
I don't know what the specs would have been, but maybe I don't even know. Maybe not even that.
Maybe not even that at that point. Yeah,
it's the age of floppy disks.
Right. So, but yeah, I just remember playing that on there, and personally, quickly, really growing a big love for using computers in general. I remember doing a lot of, I would consider pretty advanced stuff. I wasn't doing it, but like my dad was. So like we touched upon this just a week or two ago. Just a quick little nod to, like I said, my parents were divorced, and my dad, so I would be staying with my mom, and my dad would actually send me voice recordings over the internet through email. And like this is a couple years later. So this would have been early 2000s.
Okay, that sounds better.
Yeah. And he had this little keyboard, and he would make these, they were like short 5-10 second little songs, and they would be sent to me. I remember listening to these things because I don't know what I was using at that point. Maybe XP, which would probably make the most sense for that era. Yeah, but anyway, I just remember. But looking back, I'm thinking, oh my God, that was a pretty cool thing to do, especially that far back in time. But
yeah, I did not have any. I have to imagine it would have been. I didn't have any email whatever until like 2009. So
oh my God!
I have no idea what email or any of that looked like in the 90s.
Let me clarify too. For me, I didn't either. I knew later that that's what it was. It was like my mom's account, and I would just hop on there, and she'd go, "Hey, Alex, your dad sent you something." But the computer for us was a big part in other ways too. Like, for example, when we would write letters to Santa, we would do it through email. So like Mom would hop us up on the computer and she'd plug in Santa's email address, of course, and she said, "Okay, send Santa what you want," and then we would type it up, and that was a great way for me to learn keyboard typing and stuff too. And then yes, Santa got the email. So we did all kinds of stuff like that.
You know, I honestly don't remember ever writing letters to Santa. I don't think we did that, or if we did, we were very little, and I certainly don't remember it now. I don't think we ever did that, let alone by email. If we did, it would have been by regular mail. We actually sometimes went up to the post office in our, like, the one thing that isn't houses to live in that we have in our town is a post office, and we'd go up to the post office with my mom and pick up whatever mail she had, talk to the lady that worked there, get like a free piece of candy or whatever that she had in a bowl there. And we probably would have mailed it if we did. That's all I can think of. Right.
That, once again, for some reason, I guess just in our household, it was kind of it became a central part of the home, I think, pretty quick compared to maybe some families, I guess. But so I know you really got into the internet and stuff later than some. I do know that. What was so tell me about that experience. What operating system were you using at that time, and what kind of computer were you using at that time? Like when you first really started to dive into the world of the internet?
That's a good question. What did we have? It was the family computer that we had in 2009. So this wouldn't have been the same family computer I grew up on, because we moved at that point, and this is when we moved into the town that we went to school in. And I think it was a Dell. I think at that point it was actually not a fatback computer. It was actually what, I don't know what the opposite is. A thinback,
flatback, I guess. I don't know.
Flatback computer. I think it was a
flat
Dell.
Screen.
I think for sure we had a Dell at some point, I think our first computer might have been a Gateway. I think we might have had a Gateway somewhere. But anyway, I don't know what it was running. I don't know if it was running Windows. It was definitely running Windows. Windows.
Well, what year is this
something.
roughly?
2009 is by the time I'm actually using the internet, right? So like, I'm trying to Google it. Like
Probably
Windows
XP or Vista.
in 2009. I want to say, maybe it was Vista.
Because I do know that because so many people, myself included, was not a fan of Vista. I had my own computer at this point, and I got Vista on it, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But I know a lot of people swore by XP for so long that plenty of people were still using XP at that point. So you very well could have been still using XP.
Yeah, because so Windows 7 released in 2009, but I don't think we had Windows 7. The version before would have been Vista. And that leads me to believe I think it was Vista, because I don't think we were actually weird. We almost were never that many generations back. It could have been an XP. But it might have been Vista. I honestly don't remember now. I think by the time I got my first laptop a little while later, because once we took to the computer and I took to the internet, and I just kind of fell in love with the internet and computers, and I kind of went crazy with having finally actual reliable, stable internet access. I didn't realize how like awfully slow it was because I was used to dial up. It wasn't until much later I discovered just what conditions I was living in. But my first laptop had Windows 7 in it, so I think our desktop was a Vista or XP. But yeah,
I get to see your mind being blown. Just like, wait a second, you don't have to wait 4 minutes to get online? Like, what?
Kinda. And then there's so much you could do online. So I was talking about like the games I used to play as a kid that were on CDs. Well, now I can play games like, there's just games on the internet. Like thousands of them. Just games. I felt like I started playing a ton of RuneScape. And then there's all these different websites with those Flash games. Addictinggames.com was a favorite one of mine. I think there were others like Armor Games. I never even discovered... Everyone knows Newgrounds. I had no idea what a Newgrounds was till much later in my life, and I'm like, well, I don't really play Flash games anymore. But I didn't really get that, but I'd play all these different games online. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I got really hard into Facebook. I would play...
man.
I played a lot of these things for their games. I played a lot of Farmville and what was that Mafia one? Mafia Tycoon or something on Facebook.
I totally forgot about that. Oh my gosh.
I would send people so many invites so that I could get free stuff in those games. I remember someone actually messaging me once and being like, could you please stop?
I remember those days. Like, I did a lot of Farmville back in the day. I mean, this was back during the time when, first of all, Facebook was the coolest thing. So everybody was using it. But yeah, everybody was playing those dang games. And yeah, that used to be like the thing that would circle around at Facebook at the time was like, whatever the memes of that time, everyone would always make jokes about like, all the jokes would be around, oh, someone sending me a Farmville request again. Like everybody complained about that. That was such a thing.
It was me. I was the one sending them. I was new to the internet. This was a new wacky world for me.
Isn't that an interesting this is why I love this show. It's two totally different perspectives because in 2009, I was well versed in the internet, computers themselves. I already had my own laptop at that time. I got my first laptop in 2007. I believe that was the year when I was thinking about this episode. So I was already 2 years into owning my own laptop, figuring it out, editing videos, right? At least at that time, I was doing like stuff with like Logan and Justin. And yeah, and then so like I discovered YouTube in 2009-ish, 2008, and I was one of, I watched like the old Rhett and Link stuff and Angry Video Game Nerd. Like I was watching that stuff here and there, not religiously. So it's just interesting. You're hopping on there going, oh my God, there's games on the internet? I love that perspective.
Just for even further context, the entirety of the year in 2008, it was because it was our 8th grade year. So it was the first half of second half of 2007 going into 2008 and the first half of 2008. That 8th grade year for us entirely. I was actually in between places. I was living at my grandparents' house because we sold our house in the village I grew up in way quicker than the new house that we were moving into in our school town was. So was ready. So in the meantime, I spent a whole year actually outside of town in a completely different school district. Shh, don't tell anybody. I kept going to the same school, but don't tell anyone. Anyway, I spent that entire year of my 8th grade year without a computer at all at home. No computer.
Man.
Didn't have one. That was also the year that we had our 8th grade science fair that I made it all the way to state with, and I didn't have a computer at home to do any of the work I had to do. I had to do it at school.
I think that I could be wrong, but I remember there was a time frame in which when we, like, as a school, we were kind of all like transitioning from floppy disks to like flash drives. Like, I remember this era. This might have been like more middle school, but I know that there were some kids who were still bringing in floppy disks.
That was me.
You were
I
probably
held
one
on
of
to
those kids.
floppies for a long time.
That's crazy to me.
I used to be so confused because people would call flash drive, like I'd hear flash drive, I'd hear thumb drive. I think there was another one. I had no idea what people were talking about. I'm like, what are these? What are these things? What is a drive?
Speaking of floppy disks and stuff too, I remember once I really started to get into computers and how they work, I remember I was visiting my one of my grandparents' house, and they had an old computer, like late 80s, and they weren't using it. It was just in storage. But I remember pulling it out, and that's when I first discovered why they were called floppy disks, because I was used to the smaller floppies, the plastic ones. And then I didn't realize until this time, this was obviously ages ago now, but I was like, oh my God, they're bigger, and they're actually floppy.
Right.
And that blew my mind. I had put that in there. It started it up. I didn't know what to do because it was like running like DOS or whatever. But, but it was still so cool to just kind of see that. But now, speaking of kind of computers and how they work, I know that you built your own computer and you've come along. I don't know. I was going to say, talk strangely for a second. I was going to say come along. So I said, come along.
a long way since where you began.
Yes, you young child. You've grown. That sounded creepy too. Let's just move on from everything I'm saying.
It almost sounded like you're trying to do a Transylvanian accent, like you're trying to do a vampire thing. Almost, but like it was bad.
But trust me, if I did try, it'd be bad too. But no, but really though, you have come a long way with, obviously, since 2009. You built your own computer. You've had a few laptops since then. You know your way around a computer as well. So what kind of drew you into that universe more? Was it just the exposure in general?
Yeah, pretty much. Once I had it, it just kind of like there was just so much more to see and do, and I watched so much YouTube. This is, 2009, again, discovering the internet first time, make my first YouTube account so I could like comment on videos and leave 5-star, 1-star reviews on videos, which is just hilarious. Right. But there was just so much to do and so much to see. That I'd spend a lot of time on the family computer, and it's a family computer, so you have to share that, and it's like eventually I wanted my own, so I got a laptop, and I would use the ever-loving crap out of it, and I'd push all of their battery lives to the extreme, so my laptops usually didn't last very long, so I went through a few iterations, and I kept upgrading, getting more and more and more powerful. Eventually I had this like really beefy gaming laptop that was a heavy sucker to carry around to places, but it could do whatever, wherever, and yeah, until eventually now I've got a custom-built desktop, because I got to the point where I kept upgrading my laptops so much that they were so heavy that basically I never carried them anywhere anyway, and also I would completely destroy their battery and they'd become useless unless you had them plugged in. So it's like, well, I might as well have a desktop, and I was looking at prices of desktops and what specs I wanted to have in the desktops, and I'm like, what if I just got the pieces I wanted and just put them together? And that's what I did. I gave myself a budget and went $1,000 over the budget and made a computer.
That sounds about right. It's funny too, because we both have a similar trajectory in that, because we both got laptops, and I went through a couple iterations too. I had like this in 2007. I actually went online and I had a custom made. From what I knew at the time, I was still like in like 8th grade, but like a custom made Dell. This is like right at the peak of, or not the peak, but like Dell was not as popular as it was. But I got a Dell laptop, and then you were with me when I got my next one. It was made by Toshiba, but it was like their gaming line. It was called Cosmio.
Yeah, because I had been looking at that because that's like what I wanted, but it was outside, I think, my price range because I was going in with, I don't remember how I got my laptop, if I went in with my parents or if it was a birthday thing or whatever. I know I had a Toshiba Satellite first, and I had a Toshiba something else, and then you got the Cosmeo, and I was like, oh, that looks really nice.
Well, let me tell you, that thing literally lasted me from 2013 to 2020. Like 7 years. I was editing the Jam and Chat already started, and I was still using that laptop, to put it in perspective. That's how long I had it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that you were still using that Cosmo. I'm like, I forgot that, because it was one that I recommended to you. I'm like, I forgot I recommended that to you. You're still using that?
It's so beefy, because, I mean, for the time, those specs for a laptop were absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Like, in 2013, it was running like an i7. It had like a... for the graphics card, it was like a 690 or something. Like at that time, like it's just like games on minimum can still run like on like a 670 on some games at least. It's ridiculous, and I just know that lasted me a long time. But then you and I both had the same journey, because it was like, you know what, the battery is crap. If I unplugged it, it would just be shot. Like I know you understand that. And then it got to a point to where it's like, you know what, similar thing. When I was doing the Jam and Chats, our good friend Hayden, he used to call them the jamming crashes, because they would crash my computer. Like it was time. So
I remember hearing about that.
Oh yeah, I was so mad at the time, but I thought, that's so brilliant though, a jamming crash. Anyway,
I'm so mad because I'm so hurt because I want it to be perfect and it always crashes. I'm so angry, but Hayden comes in with the zinger. Had the jamming crash.
I know. It's like, God. It's like, it's conflicting feelings. But anyway, so I did the same thing. I to be honest with you, at that time, I actually got help, and then I actually paid them back. I needed it bad, and I didn't have the funds at that exact moment, because it wasn't something I was planning. It was just out of necessity. So I asked my stepdad to help front some money, and then I just paid him back a little bit later. And
I just put it on a credit card.
You know what? That's one way to do it.
It'll get paid back eventually.
It will get there, baby.
It's paid back now. It's actually been long paid back. But I was just like, you know what? Just put it on the credit card. That's future me's problem.
That's right. Let's not worry about today. Let's worry about tomorrow. No, but anyway, yeah. So I did the same thing. It's because like I don't really need the portability, because we were using them for things that took a lot of power, and let's face it, we weren't like traveling and editing videos for the most part. We were in our room editing videos or music or whatever we were doing.
Yeah, and video editing and streaming, they're very CPU and GPU intensive activities. So like you need a beefy computer to do those things. Right.
I know too, I fell in love with it. I ended up building a couple more computers. I built one for someone, then one for even actually my stepdad. I built him one too, just because I already knew how like computers worked on like I knew how like things functioned in a computer, but I never really took apart one and looked. So doing this gave me a whole new perspective and got me into it even more. And it's like, okay, now I know what it looks like when it's doing what it's doing. And it honestly, this might be a whole nother conversation, but it's making me think about games in a completely different way, too. I've always been a console gamer, and now I'm thinking I can just keep updating my computer piece by piece whenever I need, play the newer games, be just fine. Like, it's making me consider, like, waiting way longer to get consoles now and stuff, too. Like, it's completely changed everything for me, having, like, a full-on, powerful desktop PC.
Yeah, I agree with having built a computer now, having opened it up and seeing the pieces inside and how they work with one another has been an eye-opening experience for how it works. I still think that they're basically magic boxes. I still believe like a computer just fundamentally shouldn't work. A bunch of silicone levers flipping ones and zeros back and forth somehow creates everything that we see on a screen. It's just magic to me. But I've had a much bigger appreciation for it, seeing the hardware. And you're right, I haven't had to replace any individual pieces yet, which my computer is not old enough that it would warrant it. But yeah, if something came up where I'm like, I forget what it is. I've got a 2080 Ti GPU, graphics card rather, in my computer, and they're like onto like 4080s now or something like that. So
it's ridiculous.
Which I won't get a 4080 right now. It's crazy. But if they come out with a 5080, maybe I'd buy a 4080 and upgrade from my computer. It wouldn't be cutting edge, but it'd be an upgrade from mine. And I would just be swapping out one piece, a couple $100 or whatever it would cost. It'd probably be more than a couple $100. Graphics cards are crazy. But, it'd just be a piece instead of the entire different unit, like when you buy new consoles and stuff. And then also couple that with the fact that, like, as much as I would love to own a PS5, you still can't find them anywhere. They're impossible. I think you can order them straight from Sony, but it just puts you on a waiting list, right? So it's like, I've always been a Sony guy as far as consoles go. I've always been PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through. I would love to have a 5, but I don't do console gaming anymore. So I'm like, I'm not in a hurry because I get all my games on a computer that I spend a lot of money on.
Well, it's funny, too, because you're not missing much because Sony is slowly leaking more and more games out to computer anyway. Like, right now, a lot of it's like legacy titles and like older things, but there's been some announcements of newer games that are coming out but they're also going to be on like PC. So like, there's a slow shift there, and I think they're realizing that building computers has become so mainstream now. Like very, it's not like you and I have talked about this off the podcast, but like it can take a little bit of it took us both a while to get this done. However,
it took me a long time, yeah.
We did do it. We both did it. And it once again, this was totally different 15 years ago. Like now you can, everything, you can go to websites that tells you what you need, how it works, all that stuff. And I think because more and more people are building their own PCs, I think that's kind of one reason why. I mean, there's still a huge market for console gaming. I know there is.
No, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. The consoles, the big three consoles collectively have sold like if you combine the Xbox, whatever the new one is, the PS5 and the Switch all together, you got almost like 200 million console sales or something. It's not going anywhere.
Because it's not like, yeah, exactly. Because there's some people out there who are not going to want to have to deal with, okay. Because let's face it, the big argument for console gamers, which, by the way, I was one for all of my life until recently, right? And it's like, I don't want to deal with the hassle if something goes wrong, like if there's a driver issue or, like whatever. Right. I just want to plug it in and play it. So it makes sense. But for me, I like being able to, have it look as nice as it can look. And also, if I have an issue, I know usually what to do to fix it. So I don't know. I just absolutely... I love it. I love having like a desktop PC. It's made everything so efficient and great, and games are beautiful too. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any closing thoughts on your computer experience?
As far as like building it, if you're out there listening and you're thinking about getting a desktop computer and you're like somewhat comfortable with computers, like you're not completely at a loss for how computers work, if you're somewhat comfortable with like using computers, maybe consider looking up some guides online and building your next one. Saves you a lot of money if you're willing to put in a little bit of time. I felt like I was a complete idiot and I figured it out. So.
Well, God, me too. You did make a good point. At least when we were building it, hopefully the prices will get better soon, but if you do your research, you can definitely save some money as opposed to getting pre-built or getting like a Mac. That's I guess that's one final point I'll touch on.
I never
really
recommend
quickly
a Mac.
is well, people in my field often do, and
fair.
If you're doing audio or video, blah 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 blah. It's funny. I had a MacBook. I did the thing. It was a hand-me-down. But you know what's funny? I did the research when I was building this computer. I knew I wasn't going to get one because I've always been a Windows guy, but it's literally almost like a third of the price higher to get like almost the same specs as what's in my computer now to get like a MacBook Pro or whatever. And it's just like it's like no way. Just I guess Weston had a point. If you feel like you just kind of have an idea of how computers work, I think you can do it these days. I really do. Just take your time. If you have a friend who did it, have them with you. I did that. I did have a friend who did it once, like 8 years ago. So he was like, it's been a long time, but I can kind of help. I was like, okay, perfect.
I had two YouTube videos that I liked them both for different reasons, and I swapped between them and just basically watched videos to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I did. It took me a long, long time. But I did it because it took me so long. Also because I wanted to make sure I did everything right, which I still didn't do. You should see the fan that's on my CPU and how it's just like it should not be connected, but it is technically.
Did you have any issues on your first boot, or was it good once you did it?
I did have issues on my first boot, but I found out it was I don't remember what it was that wasn't wired right. It was just something wasn't plugged in or something wasn't connected. I can't remember what. I was very concerned, but then I popped open the case again, looked everything through. I'm like, here we go. It's this, and I like it was just a small thing. Plugged it in. I was very nervous though. And it booted and everything came up, and I went to go to try to like start installing Windows into it, and you know what I didn't buy was a mouse and a keyboard.
Oh, that's right. You told me this.
And I've had laptops this entire time, so I don't have a spare mouse and keyboard. I gotta run to, at the time, this was just pre-pandemic or whatever, so like we still had 24/7 Walmarts. They weren't all shut down. So I ran over to like a Walmart and bought a mouse and keyboard. So like in the middle of the night, because I waited until building my PC until after I came home from work, and I used to work nights. So I got home at like 11:30. So I was at a Walmart at like 3 a.m. buying a mouse and keyboard.
I know my story's a little different than that. Basically, I remember it took us like 6 hours or something, and I thought, okay, here we go, moment of truth. We plugged it in, and the fans were going, but I was getting no display, and then my motherboard was flashing like this weird light. There's like this little LED light in the corner of the motherboard. I'm thinking, what is this? It's like an orange light. And I tried everything. It was so late. It got to the point where it was about 2 a.m. at this point, because we started late. Not that late, but it's late. And my friend's like, I got to go home. I got to go to work in the morning. I'm like, okay, see ya. So I'm stuck there with like an almost completed computer. And it turns out I tried everything. I unplugged and plugged everything back in. But one of my RAM sticks was like not quite secured all the way. And that's what was stopping it.
Oh, okay.
Which is strange. I don't know why, because I had another RAM stick in there just fine. But for some, I don't know if it was like some sort of just safety measure. I don't know. But as soon as I relatched the second RAM stick, it worked.
It just wasn't clipped in right or whatever.
And I guess the motherboard was just the little electronics on the motherboard itself was saying, hey. So anyway, Weston, it's time for us to take a little bit of a break. And when we come back, we're going to pull out the tournament bracket. And that's right, the tournament bracket. It's been a while.
Tournament bracket makes a return.
And we're going to be putting different screensavers head to head.
Okay.
We will be right back.
I wanted to say something, but I wanted to say something, but I was like, what do I say? I was like, what
Profoundish is brought to you in part by the Two Piece Podcast, a show where my significant other and I compare and contrast our top 5 lists on a variety of topics. Not only is it fun, but we also provide facts and trivia about our topics. Come laugh, learn, and listen to the Two Piece Podcast on your preferred platform of choice.
Profoundish is brought to you in part by A Hasty Podcast, my own personal podcast talking about life, games, media, and sometimes featuring guests. Look for it on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed those lovely messages from two men that sound very similar to us.
Yeah,
but
definitely
not
us. Definitely not. We hire those people. Those are actors.
Yeah, those are actors. They're not that great at acting, so we should probably find some new folks. Maybe you and I should start doing them. It'd be cheaper.
It would be, but I'm just so busy.
I'm just busy. Listen, everybody, we have in front of us here 2, 4, 6, 8, 12.
Who do we appreciate?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. We have 16 different popular Windows screensavers going from Windows 95 up until more recent times, going head to head. They've been placed randomly in this tournament bracket here, and only one can win. So Weston and I are going to go through these. A lot of these are the ones I picked are basically the most popular ones. Like if you were to remember these are the ones that you'd remember. So feel free to, if you're at home, grab your phone or your tablet or your computer or whatever, and maybe look these up if you don't remember them. We'll explain them too, but it may be fun to kind of have some visual aid as we go along. But Weston, are you ready to help me decide which one
I'm
screensaver
already
wins?
trying to pull some of these up so I can look at them, and the nostalgia's hitting so hard.
I know, me too. When I was like, looking these up, oh my gosh. Here, I would look up some stuff too here. I pretty much have most of it. I guess I know what the first two are. So if you know, I know you know what the very first one is that you see.
Yeah, I'm very biased about the first one we're about to discuss.
Yes.
Oh, are you already putting it?
I'm just curious if that's where you were going to go with it.
So what we have, everyone at home, is we have a tournament bracket of screensavers. And we got, what, 2, 4, 6, 8,
I guess we should
10,
name
12,
them, yeah.
14, 16. We have 16 screensavers here. And the first two going head-to-head in our tournament bracket is the maze and the ribbons screensavers. And the maze is what it sounds like. You're going through and it looks like an old retro RPG style like maze. It's with red bricks. And then the second one is ribbons.
So the ribbons is a newer one. Ribbons was like on like Windows 7 and stuff. Which is just basically like these streaks of light that like go across your screen. And it looks kind of glowy. That's like really common on like a Windows 7 laptop. Like that was like the default. It seemed to be the default screensaver, or at least a lot of people had it. Now, for the maze, it's older, but I will say this. If you're a millennial, you had to be there because the maze is absolutely incredible. And what I loved about it, I remember being a kid, you could change some of the images that showed up on the maze. Did you know about this?
Yeah, you could. You could go into the files and change it.
Maybe you could change all the textures. I can't remember, but I just loved it. And between the maze and ribbons, to me, it's no contest. I think it's the same for you, but you might have been saying ribbons. I don't know.
I will say I remember both of these very much. I definitely used both of them a lot. Ribbons was on our newer computer. Actually, when we were talking about the computer we had in my school town, on that maybe Dell computer, I think we used ribbons. So I remember seeing it a lot, but I love the maze. The maze is number one for me, man.
The maze moves on. I know. It's like, at first I'm thinking, some of these I really have fond memories of, but God, how could the maze not win? But we'll see. Who knows? I
don't know. I just remember being fascinated with watching the like screensaver go through the maze, and I kind of I half wondered if it would ever like get to the end. You know what I mean? Like, will it ever finish? It's like how everyone freaks out about the little Windows icon hitting the exact corner. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's it.
If everyone knows what I'm talking about, everyone freaks out. Like, will it hit the exact corner? It was that for me with mazes.
I was mesmerized by it. So next up, we have aquarium versus space. Now, there's a couple space ones on here. This one called Space is, I think this was like Windows 98 era. It shows like an astronaut. I think there's some other like machinery, whatever you want to call it, out in space. I don't know. I think it was just called Space, but I could be wrong. The other one is an aquarium. It's what you think it is. I remember it as a black background, but with like little fish. Like there's like a clownfish, and there's like a big like yellow and white looking fish. I don't know what the kind of fish that is. They're just kind of floating around. I don't know if you have which one you think is better in this case. I have fonder memories of aquarium than I do space.
I never personally used the aquarium one, but I feel like I remember people using it. I remember the space one. I always loved space, especially as I loved space. So anything space related was like my thing. Fish was way less cool than space. So I think we used the space one at one point in time. But as far as like how good the screensavers are, I think the space one was basically just like you're flying through space and stars are whizzing by. It's pretty basic.
No. That's actually, I'm sorry, I just want to correct you because that actually comes later. That's separate. That's different.
Which one is
That's
that
a different
one?
screen. That's Starfield. That comes later.
Oh, that's Starfield. Okay. I'm thinking of Starfield then. Then I don't
Yes,
think we used space. I think I might be remembering just Starfield then.
It's got like a little picture of an astronaut like just floating away in space. Like it's stagnant. The stars aren't moving. You're not traveling anywhere.
Then between these two, I'm gonna go with Aquarium because at least I remember that one.
That's fair because I know which one you're talking about, and we'll get to that. So Aquarium moves on, leaving space behind. The next one, I think, is going to be fun. So we have Building Blocks versus Haunted House. Do you remember either of these?
I'm trying to look up. I think if I'm looking at Building Blocks correctly, that's like building up a kind of like a little pyramid type thing.
Yeah, and it can be any texture you want or any image that you want. It's just like blocks moving very fast.
Yeah,
like
and
building,
then the Haunted House one is the one that I don't remember. Also, I don't have your screen anymore. I think you ended your screen share.
Did I really?
Yeah.
I just exited out. Okay. Oh, crap! Dang it! I have to retype all that in.
Oh,
right.
no.
We'll let this keep rolling, but we're going to cut this here.
Oh,
Dang
was
it.
the Haunted House just literally a haunted house with like a really basic, almost flash-looking haunted house, and lights would light up in different windows?
Yes, and it was like spooky, creepy witch stuff, and
I found a video of it. No, I don't think I ever used this. I don't know if I ever knew about it.
okay, hold tight for 1 second here before we continue on. Dang it, sorry about that, man. Let's see.
You're fine.
I'm learning from you, though. I'm not going to stop the recording. It's easier just to... We can still be in sync, and I can just cut it later.
Yeah. Just let it run, because then you never know. Maybe you find a blooper or something you want to leave in, and you're like, hey.
Right. All right, so let me type these back in, because it wouldn't let me save it without making an account. Like, I don't want to make an account with this website. Okay.
No, screw you, website.
All right.
Suck
Let
my
me-
elbow.
Suck my elbow. All right.
Put my big toe up your butt.
Up your ass.
I ain't gonna do it. You gotta do it. I'm gonna sit right here, put my big toe on this stool. When you're ready, you can sit your butt down.
Put your ass in place. I want somebody in something. I don't know if I can get someone to do it in Camp Nostalgic, but I want somebody to have a line that go, "Get your butt ass out of here." I just love
Your
butt ass.
That does sound like it would be a thing, though. Someone who just adds ass to the end of things, like, get your butt ass, stink ass, dumb ass.
Get your butt ass. It could be anything. Okay. Yeah, this was memory lane for me when I was putting this together. The building blocks. I think if I type them in the same order I did initially, that I think they'll be randomly seated the same. Let's see. Starfield. 3D text.
So if you can
Speaking of-
remember, maybe you can just punch it in the way it was.
Actually, that's true too, yeah. At least the first few. The rest won't matter since we haven't really been through it yet, but... we'll do,
Right.
Space... Where's it at? Aquarium. I didn't realize a lot of these, too, by the way, were like... Some screensavers, like, literally went through, like, every version of Windows. Like... Well, we'll talk about that in a second.
They're probably the popular ones.
Yeah. Let's see. Haunted house. It's funny, I was trying to open a second tab and I accidentally closed out instead. I don't know if you do this, but what I'll do is I'll go to click on like one of the apps or like on my taskbar, but then I'll like click on the one next to it. Do you ever do that? Or am I just
Occasionally, yeah.
drives me crazy?
I
'Cause
feel
then
like it's
it'll, like-
usually the ones closer to the left of the screen. When I like fling my mouse down, I'll accidentally like hit the bottom of the screen, so the mouse will like slide to the left, and I accidentally open up the wrong app.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
That does make sense. All right, almost there. Bubbles.
Usually, because I have my Chrome button right next to my Edge button, and I'll slide too far and miss Chrome and accidentally open Edge. And I'm like, I don't
Ugh.
want Edge.
Nope.
I literally only use Edge to open PDFs. That is the
I was
entire purpose of Edge.
I was going to say, like, literally nobody wants Edge, so. Okay, we have them loaded back up. Let me share my screen with you again, and then we'll get back at it. Let's see. All right, so we are back. You should be able to see it again. We left off at the building blocks in the haunted house, and you were about to tell me about the haunted house.
Here we go. Yeah, I was just looking at the haunted house, and it looked like, I don't know, kind of like a really, like, old Flash-based, just, I don't know, it's not like a realistic, is what I'm trying to say. It's not a realistic haunted house, but just kind of like a picture of a house.
And
it's
you're unfamiliar with this, right?
Trees. I am not familiar with this at all.
Okay, so we used this during the Halloween season back in the day. I remember that.
I don't think we got festive with our screensavers.
Well, that's all right. You're probably better off for it. So, that being said, is your vote building blocks? Because I like both. Building blocks is cool too. Because I remember I always used to love changing my little screensavers on my old computer back in the day, and I always loved the ones that had customization. So you could always like take a picture of just like you, and then you can just have building blocks just go to town.
Because I was just thinking, like, I like the haunted house for having like more character maybe than the building blocks, but because it's pretty much holiday based, so it's got like more character. But like you said, if you can customize it, maybe that's like bonus points. So maybe building blocks on that one.
Honestly, I thought I was going to go haunted house, but the more I thought about it, I kind of am on the side of building blocks. So I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this win.
Nice.
Building blocks moves on. Next up, we have... Moves on! Next we have Inside Your Computer versus 3D Flower Box. So I'll explain these. Inside Your Computer... Actually, if you have a video up, maybe you should explain it. But I think it's just basically got... Okay.
It's like... I don't even know what they're called, though. Like, the background of the screensaver is like a motherboard. It's like repeating textures, but it's a motherboard. And then floating around on screen are... I guess they're supposed to be like chips or whatever. It's just floating around pieces of things that you would find in your computer, like little chips, they're just like purple like blocks with like white nubbins coming out of them, and then other little diodes floating around. I don't know if that's what that is a diode, but little electronic bits kind of floating around, spinning around, looking very kind of techy for like probably the 90s.
Right. I remember. I don't recall that at all. I do remember 3D Flower Box and loving it. I think I used that a lot on Windows XP. It's another one of those just mesmerizing. You can just stare at it because it like would slowly morph. It would start as like it looks like a colorful flower, and then it would like morph into a cube, and then it would morph into a ball, and it would continuously change. It was just one of those looped things you just couldn't stop staring at. Out of the two, I definitely think 3D Flower Box takes the lead, but I want to know what you think.
I'm in agreement there. The 3D Flower Box, for me, it basically always started off as a cube. It's got like these different colors. It's like red, yellow, purple, green. I think that's all of them. A cyan color, and it would go from the cube to this like sort of several different like bulbs, like a flower, and then it would have these like spikes come out of them, like thorns, and the spikes would recede and be back into its bulb form, so cool. And then it'd turn back into a cube, and it would just bounce around the screen, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with that Windows logo, trying to get into the exact corner. It would bounce around like that, but it would change shapes. I liked it a lot, so I would go with the Flower Box as well.
3D Flower Box moves on. Next, we have Mystify versus did you say Marquee? Is that how you say that word?
Marquee.
Marquee. I've always known that word, but I've never said it out loud. Okay, so we got Marquee, which I can explain that one because I can't quite remember Mystify. Maybe if you can look that up.
Mystify is... how do I describe it? It's like these different kind of morphing shapes, but the edges of the shapes are made out of lines, like 4 or 5 lines. And the shapes would morph. It wouldn't be like any basic shapes like square, circle, whatever. It would just be like 4 edges, and they would twist and turn in kind of like a 3D space. And there'd be 2 sets of these that run into each other, and they would slowly change colors to purple and green and all these different things. It's mystifying.
It is. It's almost as if it's mystifying.
Yeah.
You have that. Definitely look these up for that visual aid. Next is Marquee, which is what you'd expect. It's basically just a solid colored background with like text scrolling across. I think the text is really small if I remember too. And it just kind of.
Could you customize the size? Maybe not.
I don't know if you can customize the size. You can obviously customize what it says.
Yeah.
That's about all I knew. Out of the two, there's other word screensavers that I like better that we'll get to later. So my vote is Mystify, but I'm not really married to either.
Oh, I would go Mystify as well. Marquee doesn't do anything flashy, exciting. You can choose what it says on it, but it's just text scrolling across the screen. So yeah, you could, I don't know, put boobs. That it would say boobs, but like
boobs.
I mean, like that's it.
I mean, like 13-year-old Alex. That's what I definitely would have put. Just boobs. It would just repeat boobs.
And then your dad would get on the family computer and he'd be like, "Why does it say boobs?" And you're like,
He's like, "Son, do we need to have a talk?"
Yes.
All right. Next up, we have 3D flying objects versus Starfield. For me, this is the first difficult one. So Starfield is the one you were referencing earlier, Weston. That's the one where you're like flying through space. It's simple, and it's just got like you're flying through the stars, right?
Right.
A lot of memories of that one. 3D flying objects is kind of like 3D Flower Box, but like I guess maybe a little simpler might be the best way to say. Like 3D flying objects, it kind of starts off with something that looks like a piece of looks like an onion ring almost, and then like. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. 3D flying objects is one thing, but you can change it in the settings to be something different. So one looks like an onion ring, for example. And then another one I think looks like a ball. Like it's kind of like 3D Flower Box, but you have to go through and manually pick which one you want it to be.
Oh, and if you choose the ball, does it explode?
Yes, the ball explodes.
I do remember this. I finally found it because what I found, I was trying to look this up and I found something completely wrong. I do remember this. I think we always did the ball. I think we always said that with the flying ball, it would just be a colored ball, like green, and it would float around on a screen, and then it would explode into a bunch of little pieces, and then it would all come back together into a ball, but it'd be a different color.
Right. Yes. And there's a few more too. There's one that it was like, it looked like a cylinder and like water was dripping into the cylinder or something like that.
Yeah, almost like because it changed colors too. So I always thought it was like paint.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, exactly like paint or something. But anyway, you could choose that. So there's a lot of customization options there. And then you got Starfield, which is flying through space. This is tough for me. I don't know if it is for you. I want to know what you're thinking.
I kind of gave away my thoughts on Starfield a little bit earlier. I did really like the idea of flying through space. In fact, it's part of the reason why I don't know if I ever showed you this game, but it was the outro video for my YouTube channel for a while back in 2000, I don't know, like 13, 14, something like that. Where I was making a video game that was flying through space and shooting at enemies that came up on screen. And on the background of the game was basically Starfield, but instead of coming like at the screen, it was going right to left. But yeah, it's just like stars flying by the screen. I always just loved that idea. I don't know. It's simple. It's just like, white spots flying towards the screen. But I always felt like I was actually in a spaceship going at light speed through space.
There's so much you just said there. I remember that background or that ending tag for your videos. Yeah. Because I had a song for you at that time. You probably still have it, some slow song, and you played that in the background. I will never forget that. Oh my God, what a memory. I am totally okay with bringing Starfield on.
I want to just because I like space, but for sure, the 3D flying objects was a good one as well.
Yeah, that was probably the closest one for me, but Starfield, I think I used that more. I remember my grandma had it on her computer, and I loved it. All right, next, I might have to look up Beizers, I don't know how you say it. We got 3D text going up against, how would you say that? Beizers?
I think it was. I think I always call it Beizers.
Beizers.
Beizers. Everybody.
Beizers. I believe that one is similar in some ways to Mystify. Am I correct?
Let me see here.
I think it is.
Beizers.
While he's looking that up, 3D text is basically, you can input your text and it's 3D obviously, and it's kind of shiny and it can like bounce around your whole screen.
Oh, I remember both of these. Yeah, these are classic ones.
Oh yeah. I love 3D text. Can you explain to me kind of what? I might look it up myself.
The Beizers one is like Mystify, but instead of having two separate things that kind of change shape, this one is a lot more rounded. So instead of like any kind of like solid shape, it's all connected, kind of what like a Mobius strip. It's like a Mobius strip, but it's made out of lines. This object is made out of many different lines, and it would like it twists and sort of twirls and moves much more quickly in on itself. And I think it changes color, but very slowly over time. I like it a lot. It's really hard to describe, but definitely like if you go to YouTube and just type in classic Beizers screensaver, it comes right up. And I like this one a lot. I would say it's even more mystifying than Mystify is itself.
I'd agree with you on that one. I actually have more memories with this one than I do Mystify. I will say, though, there's something that I've always loved about 3D text. 3D text was special to me because I think that was the first screensaver that I used where I realized that I could like type in it. So imagine not just seeing boobs go across the screen, but imagine seeing boobs in 3D. You know what I mean?
Now, instead of boobs moving across the screen, now you can see 3D boobs bouncing around the screen.
Exactly. You get it. He gets it.
I did not know I was going to set this up.
No, but look what you just did. So, honestly, I don't know how you feel, but 3D text means a lot to me, man.
For 3D boobs bouncing across the screen, we have to.
You can't say no to 3D boobs.
Personally, personal favorite, I would go with Beizers myself. I was never like super married to the text ones, just in general, but I think we have to go for it in this instance.
You just want boobs to win. I know your motive. All right. So next up, this is our final matchup. Then we're going to head into the next round here. We got Bubbles versus the Pipes.
I don't even need to look up Pipes.
Pipes are iconic. They are iconic. They are synonymous with Windows screensavers, in my opinion. It's like you can't have a screensaver set up without Pipes. Bubbles is from the Windows Vista era and onwards, and I did use that in my later days. So it's a newer screensaver. Yeah, it's like a bunch of giant circular bubbles that kind of bounce around your screen. Like it still shows whatever's on your desktop. It just they go over the desktop if I'm remembering correctly.
I remember seeing this much later, and you can tell it's newer. Something about it is glossier, and it's just a bunch of different colored bubbles bouncing and moving around the screen. Yeah, I've got a story about Pipes. I mean, not really about Pipes, but like, and it's not really much of a story, but it's kind of like a little bit of my past, right? So in preschool, I think it was preschool, but that's the way I remember it. In preschool, we had like an arts and crafts type day or something where we made a painting. Like we used paints and actually made a painting. And I, as my inspiration for what I wanted to draw, was this screensaver, was Pipes. With the different colored pipes moving across the screen, I painted Pipes as a preschool age child. What is that, like 5 years old? I painted my idea of Pipes from memory onto a canvas, and it was so good. At least I like to think so, right? It looked like a piece of modern art that we had it framed and hung in my childhood home all the way up to when we moved.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
So that screensaver alone inspired modern art. So I'm leaning towards pipes.
I was gonna say, so Bubbles wins. No, I'm just kidding. My love for pipes, maybe it doesn't run quite as deep, but the nostalgia's there. I loved pipes. I loved seeing it because every time, what I loved about this one in particular was that you could watch it and go, okay, what colors are going to be next? Right.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at it, and sometimes it'd be like the candy cane looking one, which was cool. And it was rare, but you could see that. And I just remember going, I remember thinking at the time, I love how this is never the same thing. It's always different. Which direction is it going to go?
That's
How's it
the
gonna
part
do
I
it?
love the most. Was where's it gonna go? What shape's it gonna look like before it fades back out?
You know, it's funny you say this. When I was making this list, I fell into that trap. I watched there was a 10-hour loop of it on YouTube or something like that. Maybe it wasn't 10 hours, but it was a long loop.
There
and
is. I'm looking at it right now.
And I literally watched it for, I would say, at least 6 or 7 minutes. Really, just reminiscing and just going, where's it going to go next? Where's it going to go next? Pipes definitely beats Bubbles.
It does. It just does.
Whew, all right.
That brings us to the semi-finals, a.k.a. the second round.
Yes, second round, the semi-finals. We've got the maze versus aquarium.
I mean,
still kind of no contest.
The maze is so good, though. The maze is so good, though.
Once again, if you know, you know. It's one of those things.
It is. I feel like I know what the finals is gonna look like because I'm gonna fight really hard for it. It's just
I know what it's
depends.
gonna be too. I can already tell what it's gonna be. Let's not say it. Okay. Next, we've got building blocks and 3D flower box. I don't know if you have a strong opinion. Between those two, I definitely vote 3D flower box, I think.
Oh, me too. That's what I was thinking as well. It's such a classic one. The different colors, it's only the 3 different shapes or whatever, but the fact that it morphs between them, I don't know, there's something really satisfying about how it bounces between them all.
Yes, absolutely. It's similar to pipes in the sense of just watching it. Okay, I know it's more predictable, but you can just get lost in it. All right. Next, speaking of getting lost in it, we've got Mystify and Starfield.
Those are kind of close to me, but I know where I'm leaning.
You do?
I do. But what are you leaning?
I am leaning towards Starfield.
We talked about when we were talking about the food episode where we were picking different Thanksgiving foods, how we were so different from one another. I think we're just nailing it almost one for one with these screensavers. We are very in alignment with screensaver taste. I'm very much all about the Starfield between those two.
We are kind of matching up. That's funny. And I think I already know what the next one is. So the next lineup here is 3D text versus pipes.
As much as I want to see 3D boobs bouncing on the screen make it any further, it's going up against pipes. And pipes is an S tier screensaver.
I mean, pipes versus boobs, you're gonna pick pipes.
If it makes anyone feel better, when the pipes turn a corner, they have kind of a roundish nub at the corner, and you can pretend that that's a lot of boobs.
You can, yeah. Or you could pretend that one pipe is just a very, very long, stretched out boob. If you really want to use your imagination.
I love this old meme. I think you've seen it. If you've not, it's just this. It's like a comic strip panel, and the text just says "Calm your tits," and then it's a picture of just a hand drawn girl. This is no, and her boobs are just flying all over the panel.
That's a classic one. Calm your tits.
That's one of my favorite early memes, if that's what it is.
That was back when I was really into just in general finding new ones too. That was so funny. I'll never forget that.
Such a
one of my
one.
favorite early. I don't think it's as early as that one, but it was still pretty early. It was, "You're a wizard, Harry." "Oh yeah, you're a hairy wizard." And then they just make faces at each other.
I think you showed me that one. I think I hadn't seen it yet, and I think you sent it to me or something. And I was like, "That's pretty good." I still reference that now.
You're a hairy wizard.
So Pipes
Okay.
moved on for everyone at home.
Pipes moved on. So now we're at the semifinals.
Semifinals.
So we have the... I already know. We got the maze.
We already know.
The maze versus 3D flower box. Maze moves on.
Maze moves on. I mean, what more is there to say?
I don't like this because this is starting to get to the good stuff. Because then we've got Starfield versus the Pipes, but I mean, the Pipes move on.
The Pipes are so good. I mean, I love the Starfield, but it's pretty simple. The Pipes are so good.
Now, here we are at the final round. This does merit discussion now.
Yeah, these are two S-tier rank screensavers, the Maze and the Pipes. If you don't know, if you're still listening to this and you still don't know what these are, look them up. If you're old like we are, you know what these are. If you're young and fresh to the world, you need to add these to your repertoire of screensavers because they're amazing.
Add them to your repertoire of screensavers and add it to your 10-hour looped YouTube video playlist.
I'm still playing mine.
God, honestly, I'm thinking about watching one of these later and just falling asleep to it. Like, I'm not even kidding, dude. So, the maze, right? The maze, it's a journey. It's like a game. It almost
is.
like a game. It's so interactive. It's not, but it feels interactive, if that makes sense.
It does make, because that's what I was trying to say earlier when I was describing it, is it reminded me of like a really old RPG, like a really old dungeon crawl RPG where you're like moving around and that sort of like 2D. It's supposed to be 3D, but you know, like the directions are all like 2D, like everything's sprites, so everything's like flat. It just reminds me of those really old RPG games. And like you're moving around in it. And even though it wasn't interactive, you could sit there and watch the screensaver and like kind of pretend you are and kind of like use your imagination to think like, oh, I'm deep in this dungeon or this maze and maybe there's a minotaur and they're chasing me down or something. I don't know. Use your imagination. There's something about it that had magic.
Right. Not to mention the customization that you could do if you want to dig into it. So like there's a little bit of fun for everybody. It's fun to watch. Yes. It's fun to imagine. Kind of play games in your head with it, and it's also fun to throw a picture of your grandma in there, and then all of a sudden she's the wall. Your grandma's the wall.
Yeah, instead of the bricks, it's just grandma's face.
Instead of the bricks, you could do grandma's face, or you could do boobs. You could.
Oh my God, you may have cracked the case. You may have cracked the code.
You could like sift your way through a maze of boobs. Like you could do it.
I never imagined that the maze screensaver could be used for great acts of evil pornography.
I knew. I feel like you were going to say it that way. I had no idea it could be used for evil, not good.
I never even began to imagine.
And here we are. And he says that with a smile on his face. And then here's the thing with the pipes, right? The pipes... These are both nostalgic, but I really feel like the pipes, the only thing that's keeping Pipes this far into the tournament is the nostalgic factor. Like, because on its own, it's just Pipes. Like, I feel like for those younger folks who don't know what these are, they're going to look at the maze and the pipes, and I can almost guarantee most are going to be more interested in the maze than the pipes.
It's kind of funny. I almost wonder if it's the other way around, only because I imagine like how we were imagining that the maze almost looks like a video game. It doesn't even look remotely like modern video games, and like younger folks would probably look at it and be like, "This is boring and stupid." You know what I mean?
Okay.
I feel like I feel like the maze is only appreciated by those who existed with it.
I can understand that argument. Actually, I guess I get that. But that doesn't change my point of the maze does offer more.
Yes.
Does that make it better? I don't know, but it does offer more.
Because I do think there's something very satisfying about the pipes, because unlike just objects moving around on screen, it like builds to something. It starts with like nothing on the screen, and then all these pipes slowly build up over time till your screen's full of different colored pipes. So there's something about the build up that is very satisfying.
Well, and you can watch... Oh, sorry to interrupt. I do want to say this really quick.
Go
the
ahead.
nice thing about the pipes, too, is that you can see the build-up, but then it also concludes and starts over. So there's a much better exit point, if you'd like. The maze is just... It's just continuous, right? Does it just loop forever?
I think so. I don't think it ever ends. If it does, I certainly don't remember it. I don't think you come to like a door and like move to a
like it
different
restarts
maze.
or something. Yeah. I think it
But
just loops around. Yeah.
like you were saying, I think it's the customization options that finally do it for me. Between the two, because the maze offers that level of customization, that extra level of personalization, which was why like 3D text really made it even to the second round at all, right? It was just that level of customization. I think between the two, we had our discussion, but I'm leaning towards the maze. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a difficult choice, but honestly, I think between the two, I'm gonna say maze. I think I agree with you. We're pretty much on the money together on this one, man. You're right.
We really were like pretty much the entire way through. I think the only hiccup was basically like I was more like a Beziers versus 3D text, but then we memed on boobs, so it went forward anyway.
Right.
But like everything else, we were pretty much spot on in sync.
I know, it's good. We need to keep like a list of like what topic of things we do see eye to eye on and ones that we don't. So Thanksgiving food we don't. Screensavers we do.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. Thanksgiving food was almost exact opposites. Screensavers completely the same. So what else have we done?
For the ones that are drastically different, we should, or drastically similar, we should definitely keep. I think that's all we've really done. Everything else we haven't.
And we did that clothes tier list, which I think I think we had some discussion on like the validity of, I don't know, ties or something.
But overall, I think that was kind of like hit or miss. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, the maze, we knew it from the beginning. We did. Let's face it. The maze is the definitive screensaver here on Profoundish. Actually, definitive period.
Yeah. The definitive best screensaver of all time, and truly supported by the Profoundish podcast here. We are actually making it the screensaver of both of our computers as we speak right now.
I will go to sleep to that tonight. I really want to look at it.
I really want to watch it.
I really want to watch it. I want to watch the boob maze. On that note, we're going to head out of here. Weston, where can people... We'll start. Where can people find you?
You can find me at westonhasty.com. That's my landing page for all of the things that I do. I would like to, in particular, advertise my Magic Man Mo YouTube channel. It's for gaming. I do streams, I make videos, and I post shorts. Go check it out. Big preach.
Big preach. You can find me at my name, Alex Duquette. I will give a specific shout out to my original music. Look up my name on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, anywhere you get your music. By the time you're listening to this podcast, my new record should be out very soon, if not already out. So definitely give that a listen. That would mean a lot. In the meantime, definitely check out and rate our stuff 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify, or leave a review if you're listening on Apple. That means a lot. Or on YouTube, like it, subscribe it. What else we got?
Bell notification it,
and that's about it.
Also, check out our Profoundish podcast Twitter and Instagram at Profoundish Pod. We also have a TikTok at Profoundish Pod. If you want to keep up on the TikToks, it's just little shorts. We also post those on the YouTube channel as well.
That is true. We are out of here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening to Profoundish, and we will see you next time.